Hello and welcome to Centre Never Apart. We're very excited to have the film Safe Country Play, and Rob Easton is here, the director, and we're going to talk a little bit about the film. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we dive into the film, why don't you let people know a little bit about your background as far as media, both in front and behind the camera?
Okay, first I want to recognize that, and I may get this wrong because I'm not from here, but we're on the traditional territories of the Ganawagi people, your Mohawk territory, as well as like Algonquin, Anishinaabe peoples who were here as the original caretakers of this part of North America, or Turtle Island. And that's sort of like in a framework of colonization, which I like to talk about stuff. So and then moving onward, I'm a journalist by trade, and I have worked in all sorts of media. I live in Toronto now, and I do a lot of LGBT stuff. So I'm working for Extra at the moment. This particular project was for Out TV, and
but you've done as well some other journalism for, I think, the CBC.
Yeah.
That's how I first met you, as well as you've been on camera for some things. Maybe
Yeah.
just let people know about that.
So I started my career at the CBC. I worked on the morning show in Vancouver for CBC Radio. Then I moved to working in French. I've done some on-camera stuff for OTV for a show called Don't Quit Your Gay Job. And I worked on Big Brother. That's how I know Kenny as well. So I do a lot of reality TV. I'm all over the place. I do a million things. So a lot of directing and storytelling is mainly what I go for.
Do you think that past sort of work in media helped you with this very ambitious project?
Yeah, there were lots of different pieces that I knew. This is my first film, so there were all these I knew how to do all the different parts. I knew how to edit. I knew how to write. I knew how to ask people questions. But I'd never this was my first time. Okay, I'm going to do all of this, and I'm going to do it for only $15,000, which it sounds like a lot of money, but it's
not.
pennies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was more about probably you wanting to get this story told, and it's an important thing. So
it was a story that needed to be told. I mean, it was my first film. I have lots of things I would do differently another time. But yeah, it was definitely it was an issue that seemed really important at the time, and I was meeting all these people like Zdravko and Mo and Tanas too. Tanas was probably my one person whose story needed to be told the most, and I think we probably told the least amount of her story in the film, just because for time limits and whatever. But it was important to.
Well, why was it important to you to create this?
I've always been a believer in social justice, and I have. I'm like a privileged white guy, and it's really not that bad for someone like me, and it's about being an ally to the folks in your community, but also the people you see in your world around you, to actually help lift up their voices, let them tell their stories. Right. Don't take over, don't be front and center, but let them tell their stories and give them a platform.
How did you pick the three subjects? How did that process happen?
I mean, I can tell you individually. Two of the three of them love being in front of the camera. I mean, that's really what
it kind of Mo shows. For sure.
No, Mo was the one that wasn't. He's the
really.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was the showgirl.
No, he's sassy. He's amazing.
Yeah.
But he's actually. He's funny because he gets up there and he's so charming.
He's captivating on camera.
Yeah, but he doesn't seek it.
Okay.
It's not his It's Mo is chasing after, Zdravko is chasing after cameras. Okay. Generally speaking, right. He sees a camera and he needs to get in front of it. I mean, he's charming. He's lovely. Great, yeah. He's like a little puppy. He's so cute. But he I think his Zdravko is an activist, right? And that's why that was the point. He got in really easily, generally, because he has this big name of all the work he did in Montenegro. Right. Throwing the pride and then being assaulted and harassed, and we didn't have time to get into that.
So scary.
Yeah. And then Tanas, it's every time she tells you something, there's something else beyond that, and you don't know what's gonna come next, because there's so much trauma and so much just been through, right? And it was she. Despite all of that, she still has this lightness of being at the same time. She's saying I'm only gonna cry in front of by myself and stuff, but then the next minute she's dancing around laughing.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard, obviously, for LGBT people, but especially I think the T, just in general in society, let alone as a refugee.
Yeah,
I would just assume that.
It's the least. It's the thing that people understand the least.
Right.
Right. I mean, you look at like all the news and stuff in the last few years, like Caitlyn Jenner or like what's her name from Orange Is the New Black, Laverne Cox, and you know they've been making a big name for themselves. But that's like one small part of it, and
Right.
like.
I just think with day-to-day living for people, it's for the general society, it's easier for people to accept a gay person. A trans person's a whole other level.
There's so much more exposure.
Yeah.
To like gay men in general, and that's why I say it's easy for me because people are like, oh yeah, you're gay. Rob's a gay guy. Yeah, we get you.
Right.
You know, there's no like, you know, who's the man, who's the woman. Like that shit doesn't happen anymore. At least not to me. That's how you know, people are exposed to that.
Right. Are you still in touch with all three of the subjects? And how are they doing?
Zdravko, as you can imagine, is doing great.
Right.
Idam, actually, because they've changed all the sponsorship stuff. You might be able to answer this better, Dimitri. I don't know if you talked to Zdravko lately, but yeah, they've changed the spousal sponsorship stuff, so Idam might actually be able to come back soon.
Okay.
Because they've changed the rules on that recently, or they're about to. Mo's fine. He's, you know, he's chucking along, doing his thing, and he lives in the Couve. Yeah, he lives in the Couve. and Tanas, yeah, it's always a struggle. I actually have not spoken to her lately because yeah, there are many layers of things going on with Tanas, right. And she has her struggles, and I don't think there's not one thing that will ever help her, but I know obviously with everyone, housing is the first important thing. Yeah. Food, water, shelter.
Right. The basics.
The basics, yeah.
What was the most challenging thing about doing this film?
There's so many.
Let's talk.
Money. And being able to cover things we want to cover.
Right.
And feeling like you're intruding on people's lives too, right? Like it's like, you know, you've got this camera, you've got this platform, and at one point you want to tell people, you want people to be authentic to what they want to put out in the world.
While on camera.
Smiling. You're also like exploiting them too, right? Like when you have nothing in the world except your story, then, you know, that's valuable. That's the only thing that you have left. Like, and I think with Tanis in particular, that's the one thing she has. She's like an encyclopedia, like, or just like thousands and thousands of pages of like a novel out of her, and it's hard. It was hard to condense it, yeah, and do it justice.
Right.
Yeah.
Canada is one of the safest havens on earth, I would say, for LGBT refugees. I'm not right. Maybe I don't know completely. What do you feel? I mean, we're still dealing with homophobia, transphobia in our own country. We've come so far in so many ways, but there's so many decades to still get there. And as far as LGBT refugees as well, like that's a whole other aspect. What steps have to be taken for Canada as a whole to get with the times, as well as, you know,
particular LGBT people,
refugees coming? Yeah.
It's such a weird case, right? Like, so I mean, so much of the movie was like around all the things the Harper government was doing, and like, or it was at the same time.
Thank God that's over.
Thank God they're gone, but I mean, there's still like all that safe country bullshit, like the designated safe country, that is still there. All of the 25,000 refugees that we brought in from Syria displaced all of the Eritreans and the not Iraqis, a lot of Afghanis. You know, there's other people that were in the queue that got pushed out. It's not like they like spend all this more like additional money. No, it's really like they only have so many bureaucrats to process people, and you know, there's every time a government makes a decision like that, there are winners and losers. And you know, like I think us as Canadians need to be aware of that and not get wrapped up in the you know the hysteria, or like feeling so like warm and fuzzy about this new handsome prime minister. I mean, yes, the rhetoric has changed. They're not saying people are bogus. They're not lying and right. like blatantly lying in the same
right.
way. They're still manipulating the facts.
Yeah.
To suit themselves, but you know, like I don't think we should be naive that everything's perfect all of a sudden. You know, it's far.
I don't think anyone really thinks that. But
No, but I mean, I see in my social media, I see a lot of people like, oh, I love Justin Trudeau, I love all this. Like, I mean, like, yes, he's a good man and he's done some good things, but you know,
it's a start, especially compared to the last.
We need some more accountability.
Right.
Like, I mean, you just like there's like hundreds of thousands of Eritreans, like trying to cross the Mediterranean with all the Syrians, but they're only letting in Syrians because there's a big war and there's, you know, millions of them.
Right.
So I think, you know, Canada is doing a reasonably good job. I think, you know, private sponsorship is one way that our system is unique. Like, so you can get together with 5 people, and you can sponsor. You find someone to sponsor, and you raise money, and the government puts in a bit, and then when the person eventually gets here, you help them set up bank accounts. You help them, you know, like go to the doctor, get a health card, and all that stuff. That, you know, that actually works really well to get communities engaged. And I think governments can do more, but I also think, you know, Canadians, you know, like that makes me feel really good when I see like members of my community in Toronto. Like, I've gotten to know a lot of people at Rainbow Railroad since I've been there, and they're doing great work. Yeah. You know, but it's just like it's this giant mountain of people, yeah, whose lives are really fucked up, and you know, we try and do our best, but. Right. Yeah.
There's a long way to go.
There's still a lot of.
Yeah. I mean, the film really kind of focused on refugees coming to Vancouver, specifically. I don't know if you know, but how does that compare to the rest of Canada? How are things as far as accepting refugees and getting the whole process started? Like, is Vancouver, I mean, you were based there, that's why you did it. What do you feel like say Montreal?
Well, Toronto and Montreal are the big centers that accept refugees, and it's that's where people go. Vancouver kind of gets forgotten a little bit. In fact, the immigration refugee board members there end up doing a lot of cases by video link to Toronto because there's so many people in Toronto. Okay. And that's where a lot of people go, because there's people from every like ethnicity and diaspora in Toronto and Montreal too. Like, it's more diverse than Vancouver. I think that's the biggest difference in just the numbers. Yeah, and like this is the other thing I want to mention. So I want to do another film on this. This is so right now there are at any time, I can't remember the exact numbers, but there's like several hundred people in detention, like in prison, like in federal prison, no, not provincial jail, who are held without charge on some immigration issue. There's no due process. There's no court proceeding that they went through to get there. It's
just in jail.
They were apprehended by the CBSA, just like how Mo was in the film, and put there. So and Canada can't export someone to where they're going to be tortured and killed. But if they've done something, like say like, you know, didn't show up for something, or like say they have mental health issues and they have committed a crime, but they've finished their sentence, they're stuck there. There's one guy in like, it's called Leslie, and it's in like northeast of Toronto, and he's been there for 12 years, no charge, and he can't get sent home to Somalia or wherever he's from.
How would, like, as far as mental health issues, like, you would lose your mind being stuck in jail that long. Let alone all the other trauma you've had to go through. Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, and these people don't, because they're in jail, they're treated like prisoners.
Right.
Even if they're not serving sentences for a crime. And these are the kinds of things that happen in our name under our like just country
we're one of the safe havens.
Supposedly, but I mean, there's this like law and order rhetoric that's still, even though the government changed, the CBSA is still there, and they have guns, and they decide what goes on. And there's no ombudsperson. There's no way to make a complaint.
So they're just,
you go to the president of the CBSA or the minister. Right. That's it.
That's really scary. Where would you say on Earth is a safer place to go other than Canada, if one had?
Every country is.
Right, but. I don't want to say pretend. Really, like where else is like an accepting place?
Well, like there's places in Europe. I you have to be careful with good country, bad country. Right. Because there are safe havens, you know, like I was at one point going to do another film on LGBT refugees. I've decided like it's on pause for now. But I was looking for a lot of Syrians living in Beirut and Lebanon and around Cairo, and like, you know, yeah, it's technically illegal, but if you have money and you know you look a certain way, like things can be pretty good for you as an LGBT person. And there's, you know, like about a lot of countries in the Middle East, they're organizing. There are people there. They have a gay bar. They have a couple of gay bars in Beirut. You know, like like, yeah, there's legal protections here, and yeah, but like qualitatively things are probably a lot better here. But you know, just to say that we're good and they're bad can be dangerous territory, right? Because it suddenly I think it can really lead us to be complacent about acting in our own community and looking at social justice, because like, you know, there's a lot of that still happens.
Oh, for sure. Going back to what you had talked about earlier, you had mentioned different parts in the film that were indigenous names.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that important? To claim that and to expose that. I mean,
because we're all immigrants,
right?
And those who say that, you know, Canadians first, or whatever, and then like you look at all the that happened during that election, and like the friends Facebook friends that I lost.
Good riddance.
Yeah, but I mean, that needs to be challenged, and we all need to be reminded that we are settlers here on this land. We're not, you know, we're not indigenous to most of us, except for those who are.
But it's
I'm certainly not.
No, and it's very important to acknowledge that.
Absolutely, it's important to know and to you know, through the process of truth and reconciliation, that we as a country and people recognize the place that Aboriginal peoples have and should have in our society,
and how the settlers kind of that up.
Yeah, with residential schools, and I mean, and it's colonization, right? Yeah. And that's that good country, bad country thing too, right? Because we can go back to like you look at that's happening in Uganda. I mean, it's another form of colonization where you get all these like evangelicals from here, and they are from Canada and the U.S., and they're going and they're funding like anti-gay groups in the country, right? And like and telling other people elsewhere how to live their lives. Yeah. As much as
not even telling them, enforcing.
Yeah, or well, they find their allies and they give them money. Of course, people are going to support that.
How can Canadians help right now? Like, what is the most urgent thing that has to happen, and how can just someone watching this film or someone in the audience
with LGBT refugees,
with LGBT and beyond, just people that are in need?
I mean, I think there are some great organizations like Rainbow Railroad, Rainbow Refugee in Vancouver. There's a group here in Montreal called Helem, which works with LGBT Arabs. There's people you can give money to, who are helping sponsor people to bring them here, but also help them get out of situations abroad. Right. I don't have a big list of people in Montreal. I mean, if we're in Toronto, Vancouver, I can definitely help.
What's the most urgent thing though? What do people really need that are landing here and like?
I mean, it's a Band-Aid solution, and what we really need is like safer communities everywhere, and that takes work on the ground. But yeah, I think, you know, like Rainbow Railroad, they started by giving people plane tickets to get out of dangerous situations. Right. And that's it's not addressing the cause, but it's definitely like
saving lives.
It's saving lives, and I mean, like, I know my partner Pablo would probably, like, he'd tell me not to say this, but I mean, I do think it's good work, and it needs to happen. So, you know, giving money, if you have time, volunteer, you know, with whatever organizations that do the settlement work, but also like, you know, like, and it's part of it is like the cool thing about doing this kind of job, this kind of project, is like you meet people from other countries and like other cultures, and like going around and like learning lots. Like, I mean, I've learned like some Farsi, you know, and like you look at, that's a really old culture, right? Way older than our culture too, right? Like thousands of years older, and like I don't know, it's participate.
What are the biggest misconceptions about refugees coming to Canada that Canadians might have? Or
I think we're getting into territory where that's like me speaking for someone, and that, you know, I don't want to say all refugees are the same in every way, but I think that's probably it, that we all have a single story about them. That we all think poor refugees from poor countries, war-torn countries, but you know, like, doesn't matter that they used to have servants or that they were doctors and lawyers and like, you know, like everyone anybody could be a refugee. There's that poster from Kinbrace in the film that Einstein was a refugee from Nazi Germany. So, that's the biggest misconception. Don't get trapped by that single story.
Right. In a perfect world, ...
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? As far as refugees, as far as what's going on right now, in a perfect world, how would we?
Well, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have a lot of these conflicts and a lot of the that creates them in the first place.
Okay.
People wouldn't have to escape. People would be able to stay where they want to stay.
Right.
I also think, you know, like Peter Edelman in the film alludes to it, right? Like, in order for us to like completely solve this problem, we would need to dismantle nation states. We would need to dismantle so much, like the very foundations of the way like our societies and lives are built.
Right.
But I mean, we're talking about perfect world. That's
Let's imagine
no borders.
Right.
No one is illegal.
Right. It's
That's
called planet Earth.
It's called Earth. There's one race. It's the human race. Right.
Right.
That's the perfect world, I guess.
We can dream.
Yeah.
What you talked about, you know, maybe doing a part 2. What else are you working on right now?
Right now, I've gone from LGBT refugees to HIV and PrEP, so pre-exposure prophylaxis. I'm doing a project for Extra at the moment, a video series. So Health Canada has just approved it as for that particular use. So I think, you know, it's already covered here under the public drug plan. Okay. In Ontario, it's not, but people are getting it anyway, and so things are going to change with HIV a lot in the next 5-6 years. We're going to, you know, it's kind of been the same for a while, and as far as like they had drugs and that's it, but now there are drugs that can prevent you from getting HIV, right. And they're going to be like pretty soon they're saying it's going to be like an annual injection, and that's it. That'll prevent you from the virus transmitting. So yeah, working on something about that.
Really great movie. I enjoyed it a lot. Full disclosure, we know each other from a long
I think
time.
I know just about everyone in the audience.
Probably.
So,
but from like when we were kids, so it's nice to see all of the exciting stuff that you've done in this time. Really impressive. I articled in immigration and refugee law in Toronto for a firm that specialized in LGBT issues. So I think you did a really good job of highlighting some of the important stuff, like going to a detention center and seeing someone pregnant or a kid in there is traumatizing for me to watch it. So for someone to experience that. But I think maybe if you were just talking a little bit more about the government and the change of tides, but I think it's also really important because these problems existed before the Conservative government. These problems
absolutely
exist post the Conservative government. So maybe just talk a little bit more about what you see the post follow-up movie being about and how you would follow up sort of on these issues and what sort of is important for us to be aware of as we have a new government and a new period, but a lot of these issues still are the same.
Yeah, the follow-up movie was something someone encouraged me to do. It wasn't the thing I wanted to do. If I was going to do a follow-up on this, I'm thinking on my feet here. I think, well, you know what? It would be about detention. That's really what it's about.
That sounds like horrible. So
and it's the thing nobody knows about. Like, it's like, really? People, that happens? And that happens under our fucking noses. And like, so I worked with this one woman who was going to be, actually, she was going to be where Tanas ended up fitting in. And also from Iran, has this like awful story about like getting out of Iran because they were having a party, they got raided, and then she hires a human smuggler, which is perfectly normal for a lot of people to get out of places, and then ends up in provincial jail in Vancouver for like 8 months. No access to lawyers, no access to translation, no access to anything, and all based on the fact that she had a passport that wasn't hers, just like Mo, and languished in jail. And And these people, they don't have rights as far as a lot of the people who are putting them there are concerned. And that does not matter which government is in power at the moment. That is the system that is under the CBSA, the Canada Border Services Agency, under Citizenship and Immigration, or I guess it's now Immigration and Refugees Canada. And that's creating this funnel. I mean, people eventually get out of it, but we're like seriously like already vulnerable people over.
So brutal, like to have to go through all that you had gone through and then to end up in jail for 8 months or even a week. Like it's just...
Yeah. And the only reason that the woman that I worked with got out was because, okay, it's actually really cute. So there was this woman that she met in jail who like did some like minor crime, like so that she could get into jail with her girlfriend. These two women, these two lesbians saw this other lesbian in women's prison, were like, how the f*** are you here? You haven't done anything wrong. And so they found her a Farsi-speaking lawyer named Mojde, who ended up, she's like, there's no way that you are getting deported again. I will chain myself to the front of the jail if I don't get out of here. And if I don't get you out of here. And she's just like this cool Vancouver immigration human rights lawyer. And she was amazing. And that was the only reason that she got out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she would just still be there. No one would.
Well, I don't know. She wouldn't still be there. I mean, some would have happened eventually.
Right.
I think I know that particular case. But like, why do you need to stay? Why do we need to put prison, like vulnerable women in prison for 8 months? Why can't? I mean, if you're really that concerned about flight risk or whatever, give them a bracelet, like an electronic bracelet or something.
Right,
I mean, it's like you're limiting people's liberty for no reason. Wow. At all.
I wanted to intervene because you were listing a organization in Canada that can help with refugees. Actually, there is an organization called Agir. I don't know if people know about it. So Agir, it is really an organization that is their first mission. Actually, is to work with every refugees and asylum seekers from the LGBT community around the world. That's what they're doing. So Agir.
Agir, act.
Yeah.
Agir, like act, to act.
No, Agir. Yes, Agir like act in English. Yes,
yeah.
But in French.
Yeah.
Yeah, Agir. And also, for example, for myself, I'm working at African Rainbow. It is an organization who deal with a LGBT from African countries and Caribbean countries, and we receive a lot of refugees. Also, we receive at least 3 weeks since 2015, but mostly from West African countries. And yes, the story you told me, it speak to me a lot because it's look like a lot of story that we hear. For example, I have been one visit someone who were in jail at Laval.
Yeah. Same thing happens here too.
And
right?
the first time because I knew they keep them sometimes in prison, in jail, to verify their identity. But I was shocked to discover that they were treated the same ways as prisoners. That I didn't know that until I get
rapists
to visit.
and murderers,
yes.
right? Like you're alongside of them.
Yeah. But most of them sometimes they go out after they prove their identities. But yeah.
Okay, so my name is Dimitri, and I know Rob because he originally casted me to the movie. But
You were one of the first people I interviewed in my research. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I pointed to Mo.
Yeah, you
because
connected
Mo-
me with Mo. That's right.
Yeah, Mo is my friend, and I'm from Russia originally, and I spent 3 years in Poland, and then I came to Vancouver, where I spent 2 years, and then I'm living here now.
And you hadn't even had your hearing yet when we first met.
No.
You were in limbo, and
I was still waiting.
when you were living in a shelter.
No, I was living with. So I came to Vancouver because I knew somebody there.
Right, you were living with your friend.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah.
And so in the movie it's interesting, like, because